young? Or am I faking on the tip of my tongue? There's a sarcasm waiting for you. I'm willing to trade my soul for a bit of your charm. There's no way I'll fade into oblivion, 'cause I'll keep shining over you all. And if your wings entwining, you better face the fall, keep trying again. Oh yeah, keep trying again.
The Honda Transalp is back. We tested it in southern Portugal to see if it's able to live up to our high expectations. Unlike some other successful models, the Honda Transalp's popularity was not based on spectacular performance data, revolutionary technology, or broken records. Instead, it was described as unspectacular, pragmatic, and accessible. None of these adjectives would explain the Transalp's special place in the hearts of many motorcyclists. The Transalp never was that motorbike that you remember for the rest of your life, but it was the motorbike on which countless and immortal memories were collected. Due to its reliability and simplicity, it became the motorbike for everyday riders and globetrotters at the same time. Can the new Transalp manage this balancing act? Although the 2023 Transalp is a completely new development, and not a single screw from the old Transalp has made it into the new one, it should still appeal to old Transalp riders and revive nostalgia. The classic tank shape in combination with the Ross white tricolor design ensures that this succeeds. The shape of the rear and the golden rims are also reminiscent of the old days. The angular to round headlight of yesterday's, however, has not made it into the new Transalp. Now LED light elements provide illumination instead. This balancing act between the past and modernity can also be observed in the 5" TFT display. The digital display offers 4 different layouts, 3 of them in analog style. Honda chose the Algarve-Region in southern Portugal as the testing ground for the new Transalp. In this idyllic hilly landscape, the Transalp has to prove itself over about 180 kilometers of riding. But before we set off, we have our first seat test. With a seat height of only 850 mm, the Honda XL750 Transalp is one of the most accessible touring enduros on the market. Its seat and sides remain nice and narrow, so even shorter legs should reach the ground safely. The seat itself is comfortable, the knee angle relaxed, and the riding position upright. The wide handlebars are positioned less high than on some of the competition's touring enduros, and it feels like you're sitting a bit closer to the handlebars. But the 2-tiered seat offers plenty of room, and there are no restrictive edges or components on the sides of the tank, which means that even taller riders should find plenty of space on the Transalp. The unit has 755 cubic capacity, a 270-degree crank pin offset, and brings the same power to the road as the Honda CB750 Hornet, 92 HP at 95 revs and 75 Nm of torque at 7250 revs. At first glance, this is hardly surprising, because after all, this new platform was developed for both motorbikes. At second glance, however, the identical performance data is surprising, because engines shared between several models have so far often been throttled back in terms of maximum power in order to give the engine a high torque characteristic. Not so with Honda. Engine power and mapping may be identical, but the crafty engineers have other options open to them. For example, the intake was changed and the path of the air lengthened, providing smoother throttle response and more bulbous engine characteristics. Other measures included adjusting the electric throttle response itself and a particularly powerful injection system. For technicians, the details of the new engine may be of the greatest interest, but I have already forgotten half of it from the first push of the start button and prefer to concentrate on the feeling in the saddle. The 2-cylinder engine comes to life quite bassy, remains audible in terms of sound, but rather restrained at low revs. The digital analog rev counter lights up promisingly and tempts me with a wide range of revs up to 10,000. The fingers start to itch, the first colleagues drive off and reveal a slightly mangy sputter in the sound of the Transalp, which whets the appetite for more. The first stage is the perfect testing ground for the everyday rider. We fight our way through the traffic of the coastal town of our hotel. Roundabouts, narrow streets, cobblestones and a few traffic lights have to be mastered. The first thing I notice about the Transalp is how smoothly the engine runs. From 2000 revs it's easy to cruise along. Even during acceleration maneuvers from such low revs, there is no complaint from the engine. At roundabouts, in front of traffic lights and at tight turns, the XL750 shows its second-grade strength, smooth handling. Weight savings and ease of handling were the focus during the development of the Transalp. Almost every component had to bow to these key points. The engine is already compact and, for example, has the water pump integrated in the engine housing. The new diamond steel frame can also be described as lightweight. It weighs only 18.3 kilograms and is thus 18% lighter than the frame of the Honda XL750X. In total, the Honda XL750 Transalp weighs 208 kilograms ready to ride. These kilos are also distributed quite centrally and low on the motorbike, which makes it extremely manageable and easy to move. I am immediately reminded of the Africa Twin, which is a great bike, but can quickly become cumbersome when maneuvering and riding slowly due to its height and weight. The Transalp can be steered confidently through urban traffic, even by less experienced riders, and makes everyday riding child's play. Honda wanted to preserve the old qualities of the Transalp, but at the same time eliminate the biggest point of criticism. Many motorcyclists found it too unspectacular and conservative at the time. With its increased power and good riding dynamics, the new Transalp should now also offer plenty of riding fun. The engine does not disappoint even in active riding. It develops its power very linearly. From about 65 revs it marches forward nicely and also lets out an angry growl. Of course, it lacks the torque hammer of the Africa Twin engine. But apart from that, the character of the Transalp engine is very similar. It is super precise on the throttle and can be finely dosed. With the Metzeler Caro Street tires and the top asphalt of the Algarve, it is possible to ride hard, but here the somewhat conservative attitude and the omnipresent safety concept of the Japanese is noticeable. The driving modes, for example, are designed to be very cautious. Even in semi-fast driving, the traction control regulates too often in the standard driving mode. The chassis and brakes are also on the soft side, which is hardly surprising given the Transalp's low price. The 43mm Show upside-down telescopic fork offers 200mm of travel and dives down deep when braking, but remains predictable and stable. The progressively controlled shock absorber with 190mm of travel is comfortable and smoothly handles bumps, but tends to swing up and down especially on bumps when in lean. This instability can hardly be remedied, because the standard suspension is only adjustable in spring preload. For deceleration, two 310mm brake discs with axial 2-piston calipers and a 256mm single disc with single piston caliper are responsible for slowing down. It is obvious that this is not the most noble hardware, and so a relatively large amount of pressure is needed on the adjustable brake lever, and the use of the rear brake becomes essential. In return, however, the brake remains easily controllable in all situations. The biggest obstacle to sporty riding, however, is the low ground clearance. This results from the approach to easy handling. To bring the seat height down to the low level, the suspension travel also had to be kept relatively short. At the same time, the knee angle should also remain relaxed, which in turn also means low-positioned footrests. With the soft chassis, it also sinks down a bit under load, which means that the Transalp, with 210mm of ground clearance, quickly scrapes the foot pegs when cornering. But weekend warriors won't go for the Transalp anyway. It's most fun to surf through corners at a smooth pace, especially in combination with the perfectly working quickshifter. In the Algarve, unpaved roads await you in addition to winding asphalt roads. We are to test the Transalp on one of these wide, graveled dirt roads. With such a short distance and a very light terrain, this is not a real off-road test. But you still get a first impression. The first look at its components reveals that it is not a rally bike. The suspension travel is relatively short for a touring enduro, and the ground clearance is not gigantic either. In stock configuration, it has neither handguards, nor crash bars, engine protection plate, nor off-road footrests. On top of that, its rear frame is welded to the rest of the frame, which is rather unfavorable on off-road motorbikes due to the increased risk of capital frame damage, but quite common on the cheaper touring enduros. Some connoisseurs of the old Transalp may also have noticed the exhaust system running low under the engine when comparing the photos. The positioning of the exhaust is a striking difference to the high tailpipe of the old Transalp, and can be seen as a further disadvantage for motivated off-roaders due to its exposed position. I also see the ergonomics as a further obstacle for ambitious off-road use. In light off-road use, it is really good. It is very comfortable to stand in the pegs while not being too passively positioned thanks to the somewhat lower handlebars. Its maneuverability is once again a great strength, and you can move very relaxed on the Transalp even on unpaved ground. However, when the going gets steeper and you want to conquer a slope with a good pull, the distance between the footrests and the handlebars is too small for my height. When I'm standing, I'm too close to the handlebars to move my weight far enough forward to stay loose on the handlebars when going uphill. Instead, I have to actively pull myself towards the handlebars, which costs power and control. However, it is good enough for light terrain and, as in all situations, the engine is again the shining star, especially in combination with the cautious electronic helpers. For the actual off-road mode on the Transalp, the so-called gravel mode, is trimmed for safety, as Honda itself states. The traction control is on the second most sensitive level, preventing any off-road shenanigans. Fortunately, there is also the freely configurable user riding mode. Here, throttle response can be set to 4 levels, traction control to 5 levels, engine braking to 3 levels and ABS to 2 levels. In addition, the traction control and the ABS can be switched off, whereby the ABS can only be deactivated on the rear wheel. There are no lean angle sensitive systems on the new Transalp. Since I'm not the big off-road hero myself, I set the traction control to level 1, the weakest level. On my trip to Iceland with the Honda Africa Twin, I rode exactly like this and had a lot of fun, because this way small drifts and slides in loose terrain were possible, but the electronics could still intervene in case of emergency. On the Transalp, however, even level 1 of the traction control is too restrained and so it is deactivated completely quite quickly. But since the engine delivers power so predictably, the dosage should not be a problem even for riders with insensitive throttle hands. The next discipline in which a Transalp has to excel is long-distance capability. Of course, the bike's robustness, which is important here, cannot be judged after one day of riding. But I was able to experience the comfort on motorway stages, because that was what followed the wild ride through the hilly country. The relaxed seating position in the comfortable saddle can probably be endured for a very long time. Towards the rear, in the direction of the pillion seat, the rider has a hollow that not only provides support during hard acceleration, but also pleasantly hugs your rear when cruising. The wind protection of the standard windshield is okay, but with my 185 cm the wind whistles quite loudly past the sides of the helmet. That's why Honda has a higher and wider windshield as an accessory, as well as extra wind deflectors. Despite the tank, which at 16.9 liters is not overly large, the Transalp offers sufficient range. Honda gives a fuel consumption of 4.3 liters per 100 kilometers. During the test ride, the display showed a consumption of 4.9 liters per 100 kilometers. And now I have to talk about the most missed feature on the new Transalp: cruise control. Cruise control is not available on the XL750 Transalp, not even as an extra, and this despite the fact that it would be technically quite easy to realize through ride-by-wire. Honda explains the lack of cruise control with the low purchase price and the focus on saving weight. However, some globetrotters would have been happy to spend money and accept a little more weight for this, in my opinion, essential touring feature. Unfortunately, a pillion test was not possible during this first presentation. However, the seat looks comfortable, the luggage rack also serves as a grab handle for pillion riders, and with a payload of 208 kilograms, the Transalp can be loaded not excessively, but sufficiently. The DCT, dual clutch transmission, is one of Honda's most successful products. So it's not surprising that a lot of people ask for a DCT Transalp. I asked Japanese and British Honda staff about it and got very ambiguous answers. The Japanese guy said with a knowing grin on his face, "Good question." No comment. The Brit explained to me that a DCT gearbox is not planned for the Transalp as it would increase weight and cost. Nevertheless, the interest is there, and with a view to the Yamaha Tenor 700 and its explosion of model variants in recent years, the hope for several Transalp versions in the coming years lives on. Hopefully the DCT and cruise control will be included. Despite the existing limitations of the Honda XL750 Transalp, I see it as a highly interesting motorbike for many two-wheeled riders. In 2023, the Transalp again manages the balancing act between everyday rider and globetrotter, offers an accessible, affordable overall package with typical Honda qualities, and even refines this recipe with quite a lot of riding fun. It is brilliant and unspectacular at the same time, combining Transalp nostalgia with modernity. Where it reaches its limits, you don't hold it against it because of its friendly nature, and especially not since it's available for a very decent price.